Welcome to another episode of On the Ball. Ball stands for Best Advice on Life Lessons. My name is Srini Raghavan, and this is a podcast show where I focus on extracting best advice and life lessons from world class performers and leaders from various fields by deconstructing and teasing out the routines, success habits, tactics, techniques, hacks, tricks, secrets, and best advice or life lesson they have ever received so that you can use and apply to your own life and work. Today, I'm thrilled to have Lex Gillette on the show. So, who's Lex? Lex is the best totally blind long and triple jumper in the history of US Paralympic movement. He is the current world record holder in long jump, a four-time Paralympic medalist, a three-time long jump world champion, and an 18-time national champion. He's the only totally blind athlete to ever eclipse the 22-foot barrier in the long jump. If you think that any of this came easy, you should think again. So here's his story, just a little bit of a fun background. When many of his fellow 8-year-olds could be seen riding bicycles and shooting baskets or frolicking near the playgrounds, Lex was dealing with a far more challenging opponent. His sight began to fail slowly, entirely due to recurrent retina detachments. He went through 10 operations, failed operations, I should say, to stabilize what little sight he had left. After the final surgery, Lex's mother had the difficult task of telling her son he would never see again. He would likely never see again. As painful as this was, she vowed to teach Lex everything that he would need to know to be successful in life. Her hard work and love were foundation for Lex's accomplishments. In short, Lex is an athlete, motivational speaker, singer-songwriter, we'll talk about that, and he epitomizes the phrase, no need for sight when you have a vision. So I'm super thrilled to have Lex on the show. Welcome to the show, Lex. Let's play ball.
Hey, how are you?
Pretty awesome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Glad
You
to be
bet.
here.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll jump between various topics, Lex, and we have a lot of ground to cover. Let's jump right in. Um, when you reflect back on the moment when you realize you lost your sight, how did you pick up from there, face the reality, and build courage to get where you are today? The one thing I want to extend to that is when you go through something like 10 operations when you were 8 years old, you build a lot of optimism from the very first few, right? How do you bounce back from those continued failures from the operations and build trust in people, in doctors, in external systems? Um, yeah, where does that courage come from?
I think a lot of it is being able to take from those who are around you. Specifically for me, it was my mom, and I was able to latch on to her and her strength and her energy and at 8 years old, you're in a position where you're trying to figure out yourself, your attitude, your behavior, trying to figure out personalities of others. You're also trying to figure out the same in others, their attitudes and their behavior. It, for me, having to go through that on top of dealing with sight loss was certainly that was really challenging. But again, I had some amazing people in my corner who really supported me and helped me to see that I could still go out and do amazing things. So I think in the beginning it was literally just getting me in a position where I could actually, no pun intended, see what was possible. So, okay, now I can't see anything. I'm still going to go to school. How am I going to learn? Okay, I learned how to read Braille. I learned how to use a computer with the speech software installed on it. And so there were literal things that were being put in my path to help from an accessibility standpoint. And that was opening the doors to what was possible and really help to drive and increase my internal confidence. and also helped me to feed that fire, that fire of courage, and having the courage to take that step forward, not only literally, but figuratively as well. Just having the courage to walk through my neighborhood, or having the courage to try new things, or to explore and discover things surrounding technology, and ultimately using those things, leveraging those things to help me push forward.
That's pretty amazing. Like I should tell you, I'm super inspired by that. And I should tell you, those of us who have all the faculties, right? I mean, we still feel inadequate in many ways. Um, the one question that I have for you as a follow up is, what motivates and pushes you every day, every single day?
Just like winning. I mean, I think that's a really, when you win, it's a really good feeling. And so you can think about it from an athletic standpoint, where there's literal wins and losses. You want to score more points or have a better result than everyone else who's entered into the competition. But even outside of that, being better than what you were yesterday, being able to improve upon something that you may have failed at yesterday, or an hour or two prior, being able to figure out some strategies and structures, systems that you can put in place to help you overcome an obstacle or a challenge. That's motivating also. Being able to figure out a way down the road when it appears that there's a dead end. I think when we're able to really look at an issue, a problem, and figure out a solution for that problem, that's motivating for sure.
For sure. Um, so, what got you started as an athlete? Um, how did you get interested and motivated in this field? Like, even as you lost sight gradually during your early years?
So prior to me losing my sight, I played recreational baseball, and I used to swim also. Not competitively, but my mom had me in swim lessons, and so I was very comfortable with being in the water, and would swim around here and there, and run around, and play with friends. Um, Outside of, after I had lost my sight, it was a matter of me trying to transition and gain that confidence again, to get out there and be physically active. My mom's side of the family is the athletic side, so they've played it all from volleyball to basketball to there's just everything. And and I wanted to continue to be physically active, to move around, and to have a good time as well. So my mom had she found different resources and programs within the community that would not only help me to gain independence and increase that confidence, but that eventually led to adaptive sports and recreation. So I was a part of, say, beat baseball, which is an adaptive form of baseball for the blind and visually impaired, where the ball makes a beeping sound and the bases make a buzzing sound. There's a couple other nuances of the game, but it's a very, very popular sport within the blind and visually impaired community. That's a lot of fun. And I was introduced to that pretty early. I was 14, 15 years old when I first found out about it. So that started that fire. I learned about goalball as well, which is another sport specifically for the blind and visually impaired. It's 3-on-3, and you play on the size of a court that is about the size of a volleyball court, and the three athletes are fixated on either end. You're rolling this ball that's the size of a basketball. It has holes inside of it, but also has bells inside. so that when you roll the ball, it makes a sound. You can hear it coming. And the object is for those three athletes on either side to keep the ball from going in the net that's behind them. Once I was in high school, I had a teacher who introduced me to track and field, specifically the long jump. And we found out that I had a pretty good ability to jump through this physical fitness test that everyone was required to be a part of. And I was really good at standing in one spot and jumping forward to the point I could jump 10 feet forward from a standstill. So I think naturally my teacher, he said, "Oh, like let's figure out a way to take this talent and add a run to it." And from there, he created a strategy for me so that I would be able to run down this runway and jump. And that specifically was him standing at the takeoff board, the takeoff point that's located in the ground in the long jump. He would stand there, clap his hands, and yell, "Straight, straight, straight, straight." So since I couldn't see what was going on, I could hear where he was and know which direction to run. And from there, I would run, count my strides, and at the right step, the right stride, then I'd jump and land in the sand. And those were the beginning stages of it. That was my introduction to long jump.
I see. Yeah, talking about long jump, right, Lex? How, can you break down the aspect of a jump, the anatomy of a jump, if you will? Like, how do you plan? How do you trust your mind to execute and body to execute when you don't see a thing? What does it take?
It takes a lot of courage, a lot of trust, and willingness to put your well-being into the hands of someone else. I'm out there at this point. I've gotten to the point where my run-up, my approach is about 115 feet, give or take, away from the takeoff board. And the reason that the guide stands at the takeoff board is because there is a rule that says that the guide, they can't move. They have to be stationary. So they don't necessarily have to stand at that takeoff point, but they have to decide on a location, stand there, and give some sort of audible cues. Excuse me. And of course, most guys stand in some sort of vicinity near the takeoff board or near the actual sand pit, because that's the direction that you want your athletes to run, and you ultimately want them to land successfully within the sand. So I'm about 115 feet away from the board. My guide is standing in between the takeoff point and the sand pit. He's clapping and yelling, "Fly, fly, fly, fly," as loud as possible. And from there, it's my responsibility to listen to the sound of his voice, run as straight as possible, as fast as possible. And on my 16th stride, it takes me 16 steps to cover that 115-foot distance. On my 16th stride, then I jump, fly through the air, and land in the sand. So it's a lot of practice, Monday through Friday, learning to run straight.
Wow.
Getting stronger, learning to, getting faster, getting more powerful. And on top of all of that, again, learning to run in a straight line, because you want to be able to run straight so that when you jump, you're going to put yourself in the best position to jump straight and land inside of the sandpit.
Got it. And you say you practice Monday through Friday? I mean, every day of the week?
Yeah.
Day?
Yeah. And each day is, it's different. There's always certain things to work on, but we're out there, Monday through Friday.
I see. So one thing I'd like to learn from, Lex, is your morning rituals and what does your day look like, a typical day? What is your boot up sequence? What do you do? How do you motivate yourself? What's important to you every day?
Yeah, I wake up and got to get my breakfast in. So I'm definitely one of those people who wants to get up and make sure I get some good nutrition. Could be some eggs, it could be some oatmeal, could be some fruit, yogurt, what have you. And that really sets up that it establishes a good foundation for having a good training session because you want to make sure that you're fueling yourself appropriately so that you can have a great training day or a great competition. Outside of that, man, what motivates me? What keeps me going? Um, there's a number of things I would say. I'm definitely I like to consume different, different programs like digital content or there's things on YouTube, whether it's other speakers or people who podcasters, people who are talking about really interesting things that shed light on how their minds work, how how they operate. And I think we all have something to share, something that we can learn from each other, and it's good that we're able to take some of the insights that's put out there from other people to apply to our own personal journeys. I do a lot of speaking as well, so sometimes those days do require me delivering a presentation or some sort of program to an audience, and that's exciting as well. It's energizing to know that I'm able to connect with people in that fashion and share some tips and tricks that'll help them in their own personal and professional journeys. And between those few things, that really sets up the day nicely. And then I'm able to step on the track and engage in this sport that I love so much. Is one that I feel like I'm at home when I'm out there on the track and I'm training. And for years upon years, when I was growing up, after I had lost my sight, I was thrust into this world where a lot of people they don't really understand me or the experiences that
Right.
I've been through as someone who's blind. And the long jump runway, the track is that one area, that one place where it doesn't really matter what the world thinks or what they say. That's an environment where I know what I'm capable of doing. I know what type of impact that I can have, and I'm able to freely uh, be myself and to literally and figuratively fly.
Yeah, talking about some of the challenges that you had, right, throughout your life and career, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think I can imagine. I wouldn't know. What would you say was the toughest of the challenges when you were growing up or even after? And what lessons did you learn? How did you overcome some of those challenges? What made it hard? Can you talk a little bit about that? What we can learn from that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest challenge of all probably revolves around just the social aspect. And we live in our communities and our society, and others, they come from different cultures and backgrounds, and they've been exposed to certain things. But I ran into a lot of people who hadn't been exposed to the world of someone who's blind or visually impaired. And golly, I mean, just like a person with a disability in general. And so a lot of people sometimes view you as less than or incapable, or they look at you as they're not able to do that because they can't see, or they use a wheelchair, they have an amputation. And those mindsets, that perspective is so totally wrong because there is so much to achieve in the world, and we all have areas where we're not as strong, but we also have areas where we are strong. And so growing up in a time where people more times than none would put you in a different category, this category of being lesser. I think was the biggest challenge. But how did I overcome that? I think it was, again, being connected to the people who literally showed me what was possible, and them telling me that, hey, we want to let you know that these are some of the things that you're going to face as someone who's blind. The world may not understand you, but we're going to expose you to so many different resources and tools and programs and technology, to the point where you're going to see what's possible. You're going to increase your independence. You're going to be self-sufficient. You're going to be able to go into the world and not only advocate for yourself, but advocate for people who are like you. And we're gonna show you some tips and tricks, and introduce you to strategies and systems that will help you not only open doors for yourself, but for others. So people who continue to have those types of mindsets now, even though it is frustrating at times, I have to turn it into an educational moment and let them know that, hey, I literally can do this, or hey, you shouldn't speak in that fashion. Maybe you should use these terms instead of those terms, because it can come across a little demeaning. And so literally just turning those things into an educational moment, because for them, I may not be the only person living my experience that they come in contact with. So I want them to know that, all right, for the next person like me who you may encounter, this is how you should treat the situation, so you won't be, so you potentially won't be offensive, or make them feel as though they don't belong, or shouldn't be included.
Got it. So on top of that, the one question that I have to ask you in the current day background and environment, um, how was when you were growing up? Must have been harder back then, and even now, being blind while black. Either one of them would be quite challenging for someone,
Yeah.
and it's quite tragic to see what's happening today with all this news, right? I'm appalled. What lessons can others learn from your own experience, Lex, in terms of dealing with the world, with folks, and being blind while black?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, first and foremost, I think we just have to get to this point of being able to transcend beyond what is in front of your eyes. And so many people are locked into what they see, and people's skin tone, and how they dress, and how they act, and their mannerisms, and a lot of it is literally triggered because of people and their experiences, what they were taught. Some of those things, again, are just totally wrong. And I think, all in all, I'm a part of this. I've been a part of this speech contest recently, and I wrote this speech in the last few levels that I've been a part of, and the speech was entitled "I Wish the World Was Blind." And I really do believe that, because I want people to experience life outside of the literal aspect of sight, because what people see dictates their actions and their beliefs, and how they and how they think. But people have a heart, people have character, and those aren't seen with eyesight. Those things are experienced and felt when you take the time to actually to learn about someone, to be vulnerable, and to be transparent, and to learn about their life's experiences, and learn about how you could potentially help and be an ally for that person, particularly as someone who is Black. Um, there's been you hear about the term Black Lives Matters, and then people may say, oh, well, all lives matter.
Yep.
And so I mean, relatively speaking, yeah, all lives do matter, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying that Black Lives Matter, or we'll just say Black Lives Matter, because it's true. Black lives do matter, and based off of the history within our country, I think there is most definitely a lot of room for improvement. And just to make an additional point, I'll use myself as an example. Growing up in North Carolina, it is more of a conservative place versus, say, a California where I train for the Paralympics. But the point that I want to make is that when I was growing up, and they revealed that I was having retina detachments, I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Hey, we need to operate on Lex's eyes because he's having issues with retina detachments." So they went in and they operated on my eyes. They didn't operate on my whole body. Like, for sure, all of my body matters, but at the particular time, it was my eyes that needed the attention. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I look at it in a similar type of light. Yes, I think that we understand that as decent human beings who care about each other, all lives do matter. However, at the same time, in fixing specific issues and systems that are currently in place, we need to make some changes so that the lives of us as Black people, that there's some changes that will kind of break down some of these barriers that have been put in place to marginalize this our population.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, it's so cool that you're able to tie it back to your eyes and blindness, because that's a part that requires fixing. Nothing at that moment, right? I think
Yeah.
that's so powerful what you just said. Thank you for sharing that. Um, you have said when we talked before, as well as earlier, your mom has been a huge pillar in your life, in terms of overcoming a lot of these challenges. Can you talk a little bit about her influence on you before and after you were blind, and also touch a little bit on your role models or mentors, besides your mom? Who are the two or three people that have been most influential to you that you learned from, and why? What did you learn?
Yeah, my mom, she's been she's been very important in my life and still continues to play an important role. And so, kind of building off of what we were just talking about, my mom, she is Black, of course, and she's a woman, and so we know about the challenges that our women are facing, have faced, and are facing within within our country, especially within, say, the corporate space, uh, and employment, um, and other areas as well. But and my mom is also visually impaired. She has glaucoma, although she still has usable sight. And so she checked 3 different boxes. And the average person, I think, if they checked all 3 of those boxes, they may not have the same type of tenacity that she has, and they may not have had the same type of fervor and passion that she has. For me, her son, I was able to see that on a daily basis, to see her get up each morning and to make sure that I had food, to make sure that she was getting to work. She found transportation. She got to work. She held down the 8 to 5 job. She came back home. She would cook food for me. She would help me with homework if I needed. She would take me to the park. She would take me to different, enroll me in different programs within the community. And she found, different mentors for me growing up as well. And even found the time to take me on, we went on vacations and things like that. And so when you see that as a child, it's like a no excuses type mentality. And she served as an example for me to follow on a daily basis. And that really, man, when you see that consistently, there's literally like, there's no way that you can step outside of the home and want to, have a pity party or try to act as though you're incapable. Like, I had no choice but to get out there and to match what I was seeing from my mom. And I think that's why she's, such a huge influence to me. But I think not only that, kind of speaking to one of my other mentors, Mr. Whitmer, he was the one who introduced me to track and field. He was my teacher in high school. He actually was my teacher of the visually impaired, which means that he made sure that I had all of the necessary accommodations so that I would be successful in the classroom, and specifically within the public classroom. So he made sure that I had a computer with a speech software. He made sure that I had my books in Braille. He made sure that the academic experience was just as great as my athletic experience. And kind of to tie the bow, my mom she set a certain tone at home, and she expected that same tone to be continued when I stepped outside of the house. So when I went to school, Mr. Whitmer, he had a similar type of mindset, and he maintained that environment that my mom had at home. So once I got to school, it was literally the same thing. I had to bring my A game all of the time. I had to be good in sports so that, I had to be good and pay attention in class, because if I didn't do it there, then I wasn't going to be able to participate in sports. So I just literally had to, I had to be on my P's and Q's, and they just really helped set that framework for me. And also I'll mention another person, my godfather. He's a mentor for me as well. Just, someone who's strong, someone who has a great personality, and again, I saw within him that how to treat others, how to be a gentleman. I spent a lot of time with him growing up. He's been around since before I lost my sight, and he has been around after I lost my sight, and still is a part of my life. So I think it was just that a lot of family, a lot of love, and ultimately a lot of people who established the idea of, hey, we know that you're experiencing a certain challenge, a certain circumstance, but you still have potential, and we want to help you tap into that so that you can go into the world and do amazing things.
Got it. That's quite an inspiration, both your mom as well as your teacher. The role that they played, setting tone for you. And by the way, what tone was that? You said your mom set the tone at home. I gathered based on what you said, but I want to ask you poke a little bit more. What tone was that? Was it high bar?
Yeah, she set the bar high. It was ultimately, you decide what you can do and no one else. You make the decisions. Don't succumb to what other people say and what they think, because a lot of people out there aren't going to look at you as someone who is capable. They're not going to look at you as someone who can go out there and hold down an 8-to-5 job. They're not going to look at you as someone who could be a successful athlete. They're not going to look at you as someone who, be able to have a family and just be able to go out there and live a successful life. I think more times than none, most would say, "Oh my gosh, what is there for this person who is blind? How are we going to help this person?" There wasn't any of that at home. It was, this is the situation. We're going to figure out a solution to the problem. And that was the same type of, she set that type of tone, no excuses, set the bar high, go after everything. Whatever your heart desires, you can capture that. And not only do I want you to see that, but I want you to understand that in order to bring those things into fruition, you need to act. You need some execution. And so not only did she set the bar high and set that tone for me, she helped me to literally learn the actions and things that I can actually put in place to bring those things into reality.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that, Lex. I have a couple of other fun questions, light questions before we wrap up here. What would you say? I mean, every one of us we're good at something, we're not so good at something. What would you say is your superpower? And is there a bad habit that you're working on right now in terms of trying to get better at?
Those are good ones. Bad habit that I'm trying to work on. I wouldn't classify it as a bad habit, but at the beginning of the year, of course, I'm training for Tokyo right now, which is scheduled to happen in the summer. Postponed a year from last year. I love French fries. I'm talking like I literally love them to the point where if we just so happen to go out to eat, I will figure out a way to incorporate French fries into my meal. It could be, oh yeah, we can go to an Italian spot and have like spaghetti and meatballs and salad. Oh yeah, can I get a side of fries with that? Like literally just love fries. McDonald's, Bojangles, Jack in the Box, Chick-fil-A, all varieties, all types, love them. And so I told myself that, all right, Lex, let's not only from just a health standpoint, let me just work on some discipline. And again, I certainly don't want to get the impression that I eat them all of the time, because I don't really eat out a ton. But when the opportunity calls and we would go out to eat, I'm on the French fries. So I told myself that not only from a health standpoint, but just simply let me work on my discipline. I'm going to give up French fries from January 1 until after Tokyo, until my last competition in Tokyo. So I'm assuming that's probably going to be sometime in September. I need to see what the schedule is, because I'm going to have a French fry party as soon as I'm done with competition. I'm talking a whole spread, a whole buffet line of just different assortments of fries. So I actually added potato chips and all type of like snacky-ish type potato-y things to that list as well. So that was a habit that I've been combating. It's, we're well into 2021. I'm doing good right now. I'm doing really good. Haven't had any of those things. So just trying to keep it going. What was the first part of that question?
What would you say? What's one superpower that you have? What's your superpower?
My superpower. I would say I have this really, I would call it my sixth sense would be my spatial awareness. Got it. Knowing where I am in space and being able to identify how far people or things are away from me. It's almost kind of scary at times, because I can feel like a building that is not too far off, or someone who may try to sneak up on me. Most times I'm pretty aware and can identify, what's around and who's around. So I would say that.
That's a good one. Um, hey, just one final question before we wrap up. Lex, it's great talking to you. What's one best advice that you ever got? And also think about if you had a message that would have on a billboard, right? You have a billboard, a lot of people see that. What would that one message be? Anything that you want to say to the world, what would that be? So two different things. What's the best advice that you ever got? And what's one message if you had to put on a billboard that you would put?
The best advice that I've ever gotten, I would probably circle back to the message from my mom, which is literally you you decide what you can do and no one else. We live in a world where so many people try to dictate to you what you can do, where you can go, and who you can become. And that's not their decision to make. They can help guide you and they can influence you, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you make the decision. And who knows, the decision that you make may be so much more, it may be so much better than what that person may have given to you. It may be something so much better than what they may have suggested. Um, and certainly that's not to take away from the mentors and people who we have in our life who are offering advice, but just you understand, of course, that at the end of the day, you make the decision. Whatever it is that you see, whatever it is that you believe in your heart, go after that relentlessly, no matter what anyone says. The naysayers, they don't matter. You decide what you can do and no one else. Um, what would I want on a billboard?
Yeah.
No need for sight when you have a vision. That's my mantra. And a lot of people think that it's literally something specific to blind and visually impaired individuals, but it's not. At the end of the day, it's not the sight that determines our success. It's that ability to see a vision and to see beyond the horizon, to see things before they come into motion, before they're physically here. And even beyond that, for sure, it's amazing to see that vision, but you can't just see the vision. You have to be able to develop a plan and work to bring that vision into fruition. We need action. We need execution to bring that into reality, whatever it is that we see. But in a world where there's so much visual data and information that's being put in people's face on a daily basis from social media and the YouTubes and the digital content platforms, I think that there needs to be a lesson taught on being able to transcend beyond those things, because I believe that a lot of those visuals are keeping people weighed down and keeping them in a space where it's literally hard for them to see what's possible. Like they're with all of these, the algorithms and how things are, built, if you will. People they're so latched on to what they're seeing on their phones and on the computers and smart TVs and things like that. But I think that they need to see a greater vision and learn that there's a greater life and possibilities beyond what is in front of their eyes.
Got it. That's a great one. No need for sight if you have a vision. Terrific. Thank you so much, Lex. Thank you for being on the show. Any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Stay on the ball. Everybody, everybody has something to offer. You don't have to be a Paralympic athlete. You don't have to be a world-renowned author or anything like that. I mean, we all have something special to offer the world. There's always some advice and life lessons to pass along to the next person. So even though you may not be out here in the newspapers and the TVs and all of those things, there's something inside of you that you can offer that can help the next person. And don't be afraid to get out there and to share that. And if you see someone who's in need and you have something that can help them, I think that it's your responsibility to latch on and to help that person. So yeah, always stay on the ball.
Thank you. On that note, I'm honored to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time, Lex. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Thank you, my friend. You too.